Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about veiling with dragons, what it is, where it comes from, and just some tips and tricks and the basics of it. So if you are interested in dragon magic or working with dragons or just dragons in general, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe for future content, and let's get started. I had to move my camera, but it's okay. We'll make it through this together, okay? If you've never seen me before, hey, hi, how are you? My name is Cecelia Hunt, and I have been working with dragons for 10 years now, and I am a Draconian High Sage and a normal Draconic High Priestess. So I have been teaching about dragons and dragon magic since 2018 and had a business with dragons and dragon magic since 2018. I have also operated mentorships for working with dragons and Draconianism since around 2020. But enough about me because nobody really cares. Let's get to the dragons. So what is veiling? Veiling typically refers to covering all of or part of your body. It's usually your head. People do this for a variety of reasons, whether it's cultural, religious, or personal. Contrary to popular belief, Muslims are not the only people that veil their head. Christians veil, and many other cultures around the world also veil. It's not an uncommon practice, and it's not secluded to just one religion or space on the globe. So veiling can be done for copious reasons across the globe and across cultures. Some, like in Islam, the women will veil their head or their shoulders and their neck for modesty or religious purposes. Where in other cultures or traditions, it might be to uphold those traditions and cultures within their family line or belief system. Spirituality, privacy, and individuality and identity are also other reasons why people may veil their head. So like I had mentioned before, not only Islam or Muslims veil their heads, okay? So you have Orthodox Christians sometimes veil their heads. They veil in Judaism. They veil in Hinduism and Buddhism. Ultimately, it does not matter what your religious baseline is. It does not matter what your belief system is. It doesn't matter where you come from on a map. Anybody can veil their heads, okay? And it is welcome and open to everybody. Anybody can veil their heads for whatever reason they choose. But today we are specifically focusing on veiling with dragons. So let's get into that. So I also want to preface this by saying that not everybody veils. You don't have to veil if you don't want to. If you do want to veil, totally valid, totally okay. But just because somebody doesn't veil doesn't make them less or better than somebody that does veil, and vice versa. So the first one is going to be symbol of mastery or hidden knowledge. So dragons are typically associated with things like hidden wisdom of the universe, sacred or spiritual truths, mystery, etc. For some that work with dragons, a veil can represent things like the hidden sacred knowledge, or keeping sacred knowledge hidden or safe because you are covering what holds that sacred knowledge, right? The second one is a veil as a protective force. So in some spiritual practices, the veil can be used as a guard between the material world and the spiritual world to help you differentiate or guard or protect yourself. But it can also be a protective shield or protective guard for your crown and your third eye. And since dragons are oftentimes seen as guardians, specifically and especially in the spiritual realms and worlds, a lot of draconic practitioners really lean more towards veiling in some way, shape, or form. Some people just use simple veils, and some people use heavier veils. Both are valid. Now, along with that, it can also allow you to protect yourself against outside influences, whether that be spell work or, spiritual attacks, vampirism, anything like that. You can also ward your veil, okay? You can ward your veil with the dragons. to act as a personal ward when you're out and about, so that if anybody does try to attack you or whatever, spiritually, you are protected with your veil on. Now, something that I like to do personally with my veils as a personal ward is I like to activate and ward them with vampirism. So what that means is anything that is negative that touches or affects or comes at me gets absorbed by the ward and used to feed the strength of the ward rather than just bouncing off of it. Another thing that you can do with your veils as a personal ward, which is also another favorite of mine, would be to activate it as a mirror ward. So essentially what that does is people will see their own intentions when they look at you. Okay, so if you're just meeting somebody and they're telling you that you have an icky or a yucky or a gross energy, or that you seem really toxic, they're really just seeing their own reflection of their intentions and energy. And then you know, okay, stay away from me. So number 3 on our list is going to be elemental symbolism. So dragons are very elemental beings, and they go and stretch far past just your basic 4 elements. A lot of the times you have elements like chaos, maelstrom, spirit, celestial, cosmic, darkness, light, whatever, right? There are so many more than just the 4 basic elements. So a lot of the times when we're working with dragons, veiling can resemble or symbolize the control that we try to have within ourselves over said elements with the dragons. Much like a dragon has control of all of the elements, but they might be dominant over 1 or 2. So in that regard, it often resembles or acts as a balancing act for us with those elements, instead of getting overwhelmed by them. Number 4 is symbolizing humility or reverence. So this can actually be split into 2 parts. The first would be honoring the unknown, and the second would be respect for the dragon's power. So when it comes to honoring the unknown, right, the act of veiling can oftentimes symbolize you acknowledging that some spiritual truths don't need to be spoken. Some things are better left hidden, and especially when we're working with dragons, it is such a secretive and lucrative path that not everything needs to come to light, right? Some things are just for you to be hidden and kept sacred for yourself. Meanwhile, on the other side of that, you have the respect for the dragon and their energy, right? So that often is like acknowledging the importance of the spiritual exchange that you and your dragon or guardian hold and have together. This goes along with the trust and respect that you share with them, etc. And when we think about humility and reverence as a whole together in the first place, veiling can also be an act of humility. You're keeping what is sacred to you to yourself rather than sharing it with outside sources. A lot of the times, especially when we're working with dragons, you want to keep things sacred or secret to you so that nobody else has the chance or opportunity to weasel their way in and destroy it before you get the chance to succeed. That modesty also, can mean different things for different people. Some people see modesty as covering themselves. Some people see modesty as just valuing what is important to you, right? So it's really important to see and really weigh your pros and cons on what works for you and what doesn't. Number 5 is symbolizing transformation. So if you are already somebody that works with dragons, you know that transformation is an absolute given. You can't avoid it. It's there. It's inevitable, and you're not going to be able to escape it, okay? But again, this is another one that can be split up into 2 different parts. So this can both be, personal metamorphosis or your own transformation, but it can also be the embodiment of the dragon itself. So when we look at personal metamorphosis or your own transformation, some practitioners or spiritualists will only cover their head or veil their head while they're going through a transformation or a dragon trial. Some people only deem it necessary for themselves and their practice to veil or cover themselves while they're going through a transition or metamorphosis of some way, shape, or form. Some specific traditions and practices actually do this when you are going through an initiation process or something similar. Now, while we are looking at the other side of that, where you are embodying the dragon, the wearing of a veil can represent things like, concealing your hidden truths just like a dragon does. This could act as a way to veil or conceal your power or your spiritual abilities while you're going through a transformation or metamorphosis, or just to veil or conceal your abilities in general. Now, number 6 is having a safe space for dragon communication. Now, some practitioners or spiritualists will only veil if they are in like a ritual or doing a spell or divination in an act of better communicating with their guide or guardian or dragon or whatever. Now, while we're looking at it like this, the veil can act as a kind of a sacred space, right? So no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, you can use the veil as a sacred space for you to communicate with your dragon guide or your guardian or whatever dragon you work with. It can also allow you, if you set it up correctly, it can also allow you to receive communications while you're not at your sacred space, your altar, or your divination device, or whatever it might be. So like, if you are at work, right, and you are somebody that, has trouble communicating with your dragons, or your guides, or your guardians, or whatever, you can set up your veil, right, to allow them to have access to you while you're not in a meditative state. Now, please be advised that that does not work for everybody, okay? If it doesn't work for you, that's totally valid. It doesn't have to, right? It doesn't make you any less than or anything than any other person. Not everybody has the same clair abilities, and if you want your clair abilities to strengthen for communicating with dragons, it's really important to practice. You can't expect to get better at something without practicing it. Now, some practitioners veil themselves in order to enter a trance-like state. So whether that's for astral projection, lucid dreaming, meditation, communication, or divination, whatever it might be, some practitioners find it helpful to veil themselves in some way, shape, or form in order to enter a trance-like state. Sometimes it can help eliminate distractions, etc. So if strapping on a veil helps you tune in or helps you focus better, please know that is totally valid and totally okay, okay? If it helps you eliminate distractions, fucking use it, okay? So now that we have covered all of those points, I want to kind of talk about the different kinds of veils that you could utilize or use and how to do that. So first things first, if you live in a heavily conservative household and you are not able to veil your head with a scarf, or you're not able to wear a hijab safely, right? There are other ways and other means to veil your head. You can use a baseball cap or a snow beanie, right? They still cover your head, they still act as a veil. You can even use the hood of your sweatshirt, okay? It is still a covering for your head, and you will thus be safe from anybody with opinionated views or hateful ideologies. Ultimately, veiling doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be flashy. You can use a scarf, you can use a headdress, or you can use a bonnet, or you can use a bandana, or like I said before, a beanie, or a ball cap, or a hoodie. As long as it's something that covers what your intended covering area is, that's all that matters. Honestly, as long as you're confident and comfortable in it, that's all that matters. And as long as you're not culturally appropriating anybody's culture, that's all that matters, right? So make sure that you do your research, that if you are enchanting the head covering or the veil, or you are warding it, that you do so groundedly and balanced, and you do things properly to where you're not going to get hurt, whether it's mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or physically. Don't cause fires, okay? If you guys would like another video on veiling, let me know in the comments, and we can always do another one on, you know, different kinds of veils, how to put them on, how to wear them, etc. Just let me know in the comments, and make sure that you like and subscribe so that you can stay tuned for the next one on working with dragons. Thanks, guys.